I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to make a few announcements. First, a great thank you to the board for all of the administration that were here for the board workshop. You guys answered questions in a very quick and efficient manner. We appreciate it. And we hope everyone got a chance to check out the bookmobile that was outside on the walk-in. That will be touring the commission and ready to go. April 11th. So April 11th, it'll be bringing literacy to all three towns as it tours around. Everyone here, really appreciate the crowd, and I do want to point out something that a lot of my actions over the past few weeks I've been very careful to take as a private citizen and not use any of the school resources or benefits of being the school chair to try to promote a message that I felt strongly about. With that said, because I'm chairing the meeting, I don't intend to do any public comment, but we are going to open up the floor to public comment. Before we do that, I want to ask the Vice Chair, Nancy Newbert, to kind of go over some of the rules and decorum that we expect for this part of the meeting.
First of all, as we do every week, we will have a 15-minute public input at the beginning. Please, if you want to do that, step up to the podium and give your name and the town you're from. And if you can, please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Remember, we cannot discuss individual employees in a public setting. That would be a different matter for a principal or a superintendent to handle. We also have a civility policy that's open to anybody who would like to read it. It's on the website, the school website. But just remember, we do have expected levels of behavior. We're going to treat school and district personnel, parents, other members of the community with courtesy and respect. If people can't abide by that type of civility, then their option to speak to the public will be terminated. So just want to be respectful to everybody.
So to add on to that, we have some state representatives here this evening. We have Representative Beth O'Connor and Karen Garish. And with that, I'm going to waive the 3-minute rule for both of them in respect to their office. Everyone else, if it gets slightly unruly, you will get a warning. And then after that, the second time will be a removal from the podium. So with that said, do we have any public input this evening?
Really?
There we go.
Thank you.
8:02.
We might as well start this off with a bang. I am Representative Beth O'Connor. I am the representative for Berwick and for part of North Berwick. And I also served on this school board for 8 years, and it was a pleasure working for the district and hopefully in the best interest of the kids, which is always my impetus. But as many of you are probably here, there was quite an uproar on a meeting with Berwick selectmen and the Lebanon selectmen, and quite a few things happened there that were, in my view, a little bit reprehensible. I'm here before you because my name was mentioned many, many times in that video, and it was, unfortunately, it made it look like I was going to submit legislation that would hurt this school district. And I actually have that piece of legislation here right now, which I will give to the board. And virtually what it sought to do was change the funding formula for this school district. And as with everything, there's two sides to every story, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And when I got this piece of legislation from Mr. Eldridge, who is our town manager, he basically said, well, this is what we want to do. And I looked at it very quickly and I said, this is very prescriptive. I said, I cannot submit this piece of legislation. And I said, number one, I said, I need more facts on this. I said, I'm looking at this here, and you are aware I represent Berwick as well as North Berwick. And so he just said to me, he said, well, we're going to meet with Lebanon next week, and we're going to be on a fact-finding mission. Well, for those of you who saw that video, that didn't look like a fact-finding mission to me. It looked like collusion, and I don't use that word lightly. Mr. Connolly, he was very helpful and gave me the actual numbers for the school district. And it was quite evident to me when you saw the other side of the story that this would hurt our entire district to ever put forward legislation like this. So, and it gives a good breakdown of the numbers. And I'm hoping that at one point, from what I understood in 2007, I recall I sat on this board and Title 20A came forward. And this board knew that bringing to use that 20A, which would adhere to the overall whole state funding formula, we knew that we have special formula here. We also knew that this had come forward as legislation in the early 2000s, and it failed. And it failed because, once again, it would hurt all three of our towns. And I think Mr. Price and Mrs. Potter have said, together, we're noble strong. Separate, we are not. We're weak, and everybody loses. The taxpayers lose, but number one, the children lose. So I am just here to tell you that I will work with every one of you. And when anything like this comes forward, it is imperative that the superintendent knows, that this board knows, that North Berwick knows, that Berwick knows, and that Lebanon knows, and that we all have to work on this. We can all ask questions. We can all ask questions about the financing formulas that are used, but we must work together, because if we separate on this, our kids are the ones that are going to lose. And I can take any questions that you might have of me, or open this, let the rest of the public speak. I just wanted to tell you what I knew, and I am available by phone. You can find me easily, by email. I'm willing to come to your house. I'm willing to sit with anybody, and I want to find solutions. I don't want to offer up problems. And that's all I have to say. And would anybody like to ask me a question?
Are there any questions from the board for Representative O'Connor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say that Mrs. O'Connor and I have had maybe 3 or 4 conversations, very good communication, open, sharing what her understanding was and so forth, and understanding the position of the school in the funding formula piece. Very receptive about what our role is on that. Same with Mrs. Garish, and I recently had conversations with Mrs. Parker as well. So very, very good legislative response.
Speaking of legislation response, Ms. Garris, would you like to take a vote?
Thank you. I really wasn't prepared or didn't even intend to speak tonight. Came here really just honestly brokenhearted about what I think is happening in this district. I echo and support everything Beth said. Jennifer and I work very closely for everything to do with the district and to do with education bills, as well as Superintendent Connolly. I have spoken before publicly about this, and I was disgusted and ashamed of the meeting I saw between Berwick and Lebanon. I'll just echo that again. I love this district. I love the children. I've taught for the district for 26 years. I consider us to be a family, and I think it's a broken family right now. I absolutely appreciate the positive step forward from the Lebanon chair with the public apology. That said, again, to echo Beth, I don't feel at all that what was happening in Lebanon on January 25th was backfinding whatsoever. If you're lawyering up and drafting legislation, that's not fact-finding. I hope as a district we can move on. in some way and heal. And I just want to, again, lend my support in any way, shape, or form to that point, to that matter. So anything I can do to help. And like Beth, I have a website with email and phone number, and any way that I can assist the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input this evening? Yes, please. On the podium, if you could just state your name and which town you're from.
I'm Pamela Parks. I live in North Berwick. And according to their press release, it says they're still in touch with legislation. So I'm just kind of wondering, you say that, you know, you denied it, but they're claiming they're still moving forward. So I guess I just want some clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi again, I'm still Beth O'Connor. Actually, at this point in time, I don't see how they could possibly pursue legislation. I know I will not be putting in any legislation. Even if I wanted to put in legislation, I'll be quick about this, we're in what's called the emergency session. And to get any legislation in right now would be virtually impossible because you have to go through a process. You have to go to the Legislative Council and you have to get at least 6 votes. That's a 10-member board. And you have to get at least 6 votes from that 10-member board. Well, I can tell you, even if I wanted to get votes, I have raised constitutional challenges on the joint rules as well as the constitutionality of the certain bills that are being let in as emergency. So I am not the favorite person of the Legislative Council right now, which is not unusual for me. But so I couldn't do that, and I've made it perfectly clear, looking at this with Mr. Connolly's help, getting all the facts from this, and sitting down and understanding the funding formula, that even if I was asked to put this legislation in, I wouldn't do it. I'm quite certain that Ms. Garish would not do it, and I know that Jennifer Parker wouldn't do it. So I am pretty sure if they spoke to us, and this was our district, and they said, well, why aren't you people putting this legislation in? And we'd say, because it's really bad for the district. So if it did go in, I find it highly unlikely that it would get any votes. So I hope, is that clear?
Yeah, I was just confused at, like, you say you denied it, but they're saying they're still approaching people. So if you said no, it says right in their press release that they have been in touch with legislation
and
lawyers.
Yeah.
And so it's like they don't see that what they did was wrong. There was no apology. There was nothing. They just don't think it was wrong. They did, which is appalling to me. But
Ms. O'Connor, during public input, we weren't clear on this, so nothing
Sorry.
about that, is we really can't have a lot of back and forth conversation.
Sorry.
Because the microphones are right there on the podium. It's more of a one at a time thing. If you have any follow-up questions, we can kind of do it at one at a time.
So maybe I should ask again. I'll shoot from the hip. I'll tell you whatever I know. And I have met with my selectman as well as my town manager and made it clear that this was not a good piece of legislation, that I wouldn't put it in. And I said, you get the facts for me, get all 3 towns together, and if something is agreed upon in 2019, when the legislative body goes into the long session, perhaps we can do that. But for right now, nothing is going to happen. And from the conversations that I've had with multiple members on this board, the superintendent and others, I find it highly unlikely that this legislation will go forward. And if anybody else has a question, I don't bite hard anyway. So if anybody else has a question, like you had a question, I'll take those questions. Okay? If you need any clarity. Once?
But
Twice?
well, I just sort of warn everybody not to do back and
Right,
forth.
okay. Obviously, I don't take direction well.
Everyone here is getting a gold star for behaving in class. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public input this evening? Yes, please, step up. Thank you for coming this evening. Would you please state your name and where you're from?
Sure, I'm Kelly Gray, I'm from Berwick. I grew up in Berwick. I met my husband in Berwick, and we both graduated from Noble High School. I loved going to Noble so much. My senior superlative was most school spirit. We both went to college away, and then we decided to move back to Berwick, and that this is where we wanted to raise a family. And we also decided to get involved. We own and operate a business in Berwick. My husband, Kevin, is the head coach of the wrestling team. We volunteer on lots of different boards and care a lot about the town and the things we're involved in. We have 3 young boys who are going to come up through the school system. We're also really big proponents of the idea that successful student athletes create successful, employable adults who are leaders in their community, in our towns, in their schools. To do that, we need to work towards a system of youth athletics that includes all 3 towns, and that's not separated by town lines. We think kids should be playing together younger, they should be supported by the high school programs, and we really think Noble Athletics should be something that we can all be really proud of. The only way to accomplish that is to foster a relationship between our 3 towns that create one community. So with that said, I found the behavior of our Board of Selectmen really disappointing. I understand what they were interested in, I understand what they were trying to research, and I also understand that they believe that they were trying to do what's best for the town. What's most disheartening and has been hardest to watch is the defensive stance and the unwillingness to look beyond Berwick and see that the behavior is damaging to Berwick. And I think that all this has done is draw the lines of demarcation between our towns even deeper. And I would say this, I would say a little humility goes a long way, and I hope that our selectmen and our town manager will apologize and take the time to say that they understand what people are upset about, to accept that their residents are disappointed, displeased, and embarrassed. And I say this isn't just about money, and I hope that they'll tell us that they'll do better and that we can move forward in a positive manner with our partner towns and not individually. Thanks.
Any other public input? You step up. Why, we had a full-time limit? I forgot. Did we talk about the time limit on this one?
Usually we do. We said that it's 15 minutes, but we don't have to.
We were just discussing, Deb, give me just 1 second. We were just discussing it, the way that the typical template is set up is that there's a public input session at the start, and then there's a time limit, and then at the end there's more. But maybe in this case, it's better off just to let people have their say and move. No, you're all set? And just to move the, not have the end session. So just.
Motion to adjust our agenda?
No, because it's just timing. It's just timing. It's not, the items are there.
It's also our policy, isn't it? Is it also board policy for 15 minutes?
That is true, but with the, we can move things around the agenda, so to accommodate this large crowd and everybody's opinion, I think it might be wise, then if I ask for a board motion to move item number 11, public input continued, to a substitute for number 4, minutes approval of February 15th, and we can continue on with this so everyone doesn't have to stay till the end of the meeting to have their say.
So moved.
We have a motion?
Second.
Second from Joanne. Any further discussion on the matter? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And we are free of a time limit for public input. Please state your name. Where are you from?
I'm Deborah Wilson. I'm from Lebanon, Maine. I have the Lebanon, Maine Truth Seekers page. I've been getting a lot of comments and concerns about all that's been going on with regards to the school. I've talked to selectmen in all 3 towns now, and I've talked to a few of the school board members, and I had a brief moment with Mr. Connolly coming in. And I believe in blessings, and I just want to say that this started out really wrong, but I don't think it should continue to go on. There's a lot of people in this room tonight, a lot of people that usually don't show up at school board meetings or at selectmen's meetings, and you're all here because you're worried about something that happened in your selectman's office. Like I had spoken to Mr. Connolly, sometimes things need to be revisited, and maybe Lebanon's not paying enough. And if I'm not paying enough, I don't care, I'll kick in and pay my fair share. Maybe North Berwick's not paying enough. Maybe Berwick's not paying enough. But we don't know because it hasn't been revisited in like 10 years, this whole formula. So I'm just saying that instead of everybody being disgusted and discouraged, have your selectmen make their apologies for what they did, but perhaps revisiting this and actually everybody coming out to hear more information may be a good place to start.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I hadn't planned on this, I'm not prepared. I'm Carol Merrill from North Berwick. I've been in this district almost 30 years now. Still a sophomore here at Noble. I'm not here to make big statements or facts or anything. My concern is, like that's many students in this district. And today we know medically and everything, we have a large portion of adolescents struggling with anxieties, social, all sorts of things. And this has created a little bit of a, schism. And there are kids out there struggling because they're hearing the talk. Are we going to be hawks? Do we have to go to Marshwood? Is Noble breaking up? So I just wanted to point that out and remind us that this is a very adult type venue, but that our kids are impacted. And I didn't know if this board or Superintendent Connolly, I can't give my child any confirmation of what 2 years will bring. If he will graduate from Noble as was planned, as all these kids have done from kindergarten, or if there may be a district restructuring. And I don't know if any of you can give that answer tonight either, but I didn't know if anything's being done, at least at the high school level, to speak to the kids about this issue. I mean, these aren't young children. These are the same student ages that are pushing, through the gun support laws and things like that. And I don't know if you've heard from them, if they're student representatives, or if anyone else is seeing this as a right now issue that somebody should be speaking to the kids about that.
Can I speak to that for just a second?
That was my only question.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that, Sarah. So I think the timing, the confluence of national events and so forth has really drawn off student attention into the bigger venue of the school safety and violence. And so, and then we had the vacation break in there as well. So over the last month, when a lot of this has occurred, it's been about a month, 5 weeks, there really hasn't been a lot of student feedback at the secondary level about how they are or aren't feeling about it. It's been really overwhelmingly, almost completely on the other side of the conversation about the national picture.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name is Charles Guillermo. I'm from North Berwick. I'm on the Board of Selectmen in North Berwick. And I've been following the Facebook page and everything that's been going on and been involved in it from the board standpoint. And I want to say that the board would consider North Berwick pulling out of the district actually a failure of the process. We don't want to. We are upset about how this has progressed, and not once has anyone from Berwick picked up the phone and tried to contact us about it. We have put out invitations. I know Rebecca, my wife, hers came in the mail today for a meeting on this between our board, all of the 3 town boards of selectmen and the school board. We look forward to that meeting, and we think it needs to happen sooner than later because of the uncertainty that was voiced here. You know, we're willing to talk about things, but we feel there needs to be an open discussion and a fair discussion about what's happening. One thing I noticed from watching the videos of the Lebanon meeting and the Berwick meeting is the Berwick town manager and selectmen constantly saying, well, we don't understand this. And I want to say to Berwick, if you want me to come to your next meeting and explain to you how the state funding works, how the school funding works, and how everything lines up, I am more than happy to give you a presentation on it. I'm well versed in it. I understand it fully. I considered it part of my job to know these things as a selectman, and I took it very seriously. And Mr. Knight, if you're willing, I will come Tuesday night to your board meeting and give you a full presentation with documentation and handouts on how all of this works. Is that good?
I won't be there on Tuesday, unfortunately. I'm going to be in Disneyland.
Well, perhaps maybe the rest of your board might want this information? Well, thank you, then. I'll be there.
Charles, so Rebecca England is one of the Berwick selectmen.
Thank you, sir. Ready? All right.
Oh, you're gonna lie.
We had a self-cue, and I love it.
Yeah, so my name's Tony Price, North Berwick there. So I've been here about 3 years. And first of all, I'd like to thank the gentleman that had such crass I was in the Navy for 24 years, so certain words I'm not supposed to use these days. So I'll try to work through it. But through this, and the reason I want to thank him is because I got to sit down, more eloquently, my wife got to sit down and discuss with my children when they came home crying from school from the ages of, oh wow, 5 all the way to 16. So when you say it's not in your schools, that their attention is divided somewhere else, I would counter that, because I have 6 children. You only have 4 with the 5th one coming. And to have to explain to them that some adults talk differently and that they talk so rudimentary when so much is in the balance. And that I have to explain to them the difference between how daddy fact finds and how daddy talks to people, and then they counter me with, well, isn't a lawyer serious, Dad, if you're talking to a lawyer? Like, yes, it is a little more serious than that. Am I going to have to be a hawk, Dad? I really like my noble colors. At that level, they have the bond. And my daughter gets up and, oh, hey, there he is. My daughter loves the man. Mr. A loves him. And that's what she wants to know. I'm not going to see Mr. A? So when you say that your children aren't affected, I really wish that as adults, if you were a bit more honest and truthful and transparent, that a lot can be accomplished. But at the same time, I'm thankful because I have to teach my children about deceit, about lying, and how politicians and car salesmen are a lot alike, because that's the closest I could assimilate that to. So thank you for the events that unfolded, because now my children are more educated and aware, but at the same time, I wish for more transparency, clarity, and honesty as we move forward. That's it.
Well said. Tony, before you step down, just for clarification, I want to be sure that I don't come across as saying that it isn't conversations that kids are having in the homes, but as far as from the school perspective, we're definitely hearing a lot about the national scene. And then on the other thing, I have one question for you. What grade is your daughter in?
She's a kindergartner.
Kindergartner. So
And
Have you seen her tonight?
My Sammy,
Have you had the opportunity to see your daughter tonight?
I did.
Did she say that she saw anybody else at her school today?
I know, she's pretty much, I mean, if you...
It's Mr. A, not you.
Conversation
All
about
right,
18
I'll
years.
give you a clue to pass on to her. Cat in the Hat.
If you need Dr. Seuss books, I think I rival one of the walls.
Okay, great, thank
We're all
you.
set, but thank you.
Thank you. I'd like the record also show that it is not always about you.
On a cat.
Next up, thank you.
I'm glad you have a program that's working so well that it's going to be passed on from the children to the parents there. My name's Clint Hutchinson. I'm from North Berwick. I'm asking just for a little bit more understanding. In a lot of this discussion with my neighbors and friends, we're a little confused as to what is the breakdown. I feel like it should be like a per capita thing, which is, you know, North Berwick sends 100 kids to the school, they pay for the 100 kids. Berwick sends 150, they pay for 150. I thought and my general saying of that, yeah, and I see some head shaking, so I don't know what and I realized there was sort of a sweet deal, from watching that tape, there was sort of some sweet deal to get North Berwick to go into the agreement, but, I mean, I thought it was horrendous too, of the way that they did it, but it's brought the conversation to the table of saying, okay, I mean, we've got, I really love this town and what they do for the kids and for the schools. I don't think that we're turning our backs on Lebanon or Berwick and saying, we're willing to discuss it and say, you know, we will pony up to our share, which is per kid. You know, I want to pay for my kid and for all my kids to have good education. And I want the fellow towns to have good education for their kids too. I mean, I think you pretty much answered it, that there's going to be a breakdown of what that deal is and such. I don't think it should be off the table for, I'm from North Berwick. I'm getting the sweet end of the deal. I don't think it should be off the table the fact that it can be negotiable. If there was something that was sweet back then, it's not so sweet now, and we actually have the ability, I think as a town member, I think that we should have that discussion open. I'm not condoning in any way these secret meetings or these things said that it was a farce to watch it at times to see how the conversation went. But I'm saying that it's there, it's out, so I want more understanding. I'm going to go to this next Tuesday meeting and find out what is the breakdown. Is it too sweet of a deal? I mean, I know that we have a lot of stuff in our town now that has a lot of provision, so.
So, Flynn, so just on a quick 2-minute cap of what that looks like, there is a, so you take the entire school district and you say, or all 3 municipalities, you have the property valuation and you have the enrollment. So let's say that one community has 55%, I'll just pick numbers, 55% of the property valuation, another one has 25%, and another one has 20. So you have that factor that you use, and then you have a factor of what your student population is. So if a community has 22% of the kids and another one has whatever percents. So those 2 factors are used, those are averaged to come out with what the percents are that each community pays. So it takes into account the 2 factors. Originally, when North Berwick was, when the district was looking to formulate, it was for North Berwick with a higher property valuation and the lowest student count, the change in those numbers has the most play and can cause the most drastic of swings in their contribution. Whereas in Lebanon, where it's, let's say, let's just pick 34% of the property valuation and 32% of the student population, there's not a lot of difference for them. So that's how it originally developed anyways.
And because of that 50-50 split of the evaluation, there's no, I was trying to understand what they were trying to put forward the legislation to, as they say, make it more equal or equitable.
Well, so what communities will look at in that is Should it be more about the property valuation, or should it be more about the student population? And so different communities have different says about, have a different say about that.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Pamela Parks, North Berwick. I do have a son, he's in 6th grade. I also volunteer, I coach cheerleading for the rec programs. So I am super concerned about the kids. I do a lot for the kids, and so this is why I have a lot of questions. I think there was one person in that Lebanon meeting that I don't think she's here, but Maureen Finger, I think her name is. And I'm wondering what she kept talking about, essential and non-essential programs, and who was paying, and they were paying too much. And so I wanted a little bit of clarity on that. And I also wanted clarity on the Ryan project, because she was saying that Beth O'Connor wants to buy that damn building.
Actually, she was talking about...
It's Sue Austin who wants to buy the damn building.
An awful thing that she said about you wanting to... I'm sorry.
It's okay.
To want to support our homeless kids in this area, to say their couch surfers, and that the school shouldn't fund it, state shouldn't fund it, which I didn't think either one was funding it, but...
And you're absolutely accurate, they are not funding it.
Okay.
It's not even...
Like the language, I mean, there's some profanities in there, and it was just like, wow, these are kids that are on the street, like, it was really upsetting to hear that.
So your first question, Pam, about the essential programs and services, so the state says if you strip down to the barest essentials needed for a district to survive, to exist, they take that, they do calculations. They'll say, for instance, you can have one educational technician to every 312 students. You can have one teacher to every 18 elementary students and every 15 high school students. So they give you numbers on everything. And then they come out and they say, this is how much your town should be contributing towards the EPS, and this is how much the state will contribute towards that. Our total is about 52% state contribution. So beyond that, when we go to the auditorium in May for the town meeting, there is an article that says beyond the EPS, is the district willing to contribute this amount? So if we just did EPS, that would be about maybe 10 or 11 districts in the state that say, yeah, we can follow that, and they're usually the highest socioeconomic status communities in the state. The other communities realize that you cannot really exist on that. So people vote to go beyond that. Let's say it's a $2.4 million vote beyond the EPS, and it's a determination of the citizens to decide, is that the number you want to put forward to taxpayers? Do you support it? If it is, then it goes to the referendum.
Okay, well, thank you. I just really appreciate that and the clarity on the Ryan project, because I'm very supportive of that. I talk to kids, I hear about home life, and I think it's really important to have, even a community center where the kids can come after school. I know I had that. I went to Dover High School. That's where I graduated from in New Hampshire, and we had something like that. And I think it's very beneficial that the kids can approach people and kind of take a break from what they may be dealing with at home. So, thank you for the clarity on that.
Thank you for Karen.
Thank you. Any further public input, maybe from the cheap seats? Going once, going twice, okay, seeing no more public input, what did you do with my agenda? Right here. You wrote notes on it.
I did.
Okay, I believe we're at the approval of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to the approval of the minutes of February 15th. I will need a motion for approval.
I have a couple changes to be made. Gotta get to my notes first.
Okay.
Ms. Hopper appeared in the after the executive sessions. She's not listed on there as appearance.
Gotcha. Okay.
Other business, I made a motion. Nobody seconded it, or it shows that nobody seconded it.
Where was it?
Somebody did, but I don't remember where. I don't remember who.
Business.
Under other
the
business.
I'll check this
It
out.
was the backpack program, the exception of the donation. I
Yep.
made the motion, and I don't know who seconded it.
All right.
Okay, so I have both of those details in my, actually in my notebook here, so I can add those in.
And then the crisis plan paragraph, which is also under other business. The second crisis word is missing an S.
It's good to have you around, Travis.
That's it, that's all I have.
Hawkeye.
Thank you. I like it.
I appreciate it.
Very good.
Keeps them on my toes.
Any other further amendments required to the minutes? Need a motion to accept as
I'll
amended?
make a motion to accept them as amended.
And I'll add those in.
Yep.
Second that motion.
We have a motion from Travis, a second from Nancy, I thought I heard. Okay, we'll give it to Nancy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's 9-0.
Thank you.
Okay, section number 5, we had a request from Berwick Selectman Tom Wright to have 20 minutes of our time to discuss the confusion. Well, I wasn't sure how long you had, so I cleared a whole block for you. Thank you for coming this evening.
I'm not that long-winded, I hope. Good evening. I'm Tom Wright, Chairman of the Berwick Board of Selectmen. Many of you know me, some of you know me for a long time. I'm a lifelong resident of Berwick. I graduated from Noble High School in 1975. My wife graduated from Noble. Both my children graduated from Noble, and now I have 2 grandchildren in this school district. I point this out to show my family's commitment to the school district, and I assure you it was not my intent to harm the district. First, I want to say that I know there's a lot of stuff going around on social media. I'm not into social media. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology. I don't debate public policy on social media. I debate it in open sessions. I do this for 2 reasons. The first is that it's public policy, and it should be taken care of in public, not behind the keyboard. And the second point, too, is that everything that we do on the social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or whatever else, texting, that's all open for public information. And I'm all for being open to public information. For some background on what's going on. First, I want to apologize for the impression that everybody had about the meeting in Lebanon. I agree that there were things said that shouldn't have been said. One of our selectmen who is known to shoot from the hip, and I have to sit on him all the time in our meetings too. But Mark is a working man. He's not a politician. He speaks his mind. For some background, last fall, Berwick's finance director was preparing for our upcoming process and reviewed the town's commitment to the school system. She had questions about the funding formula, and we couldn't answer them. The Berwick town manager and the finance director met with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and their finance director to get some information. That was back in September, I believe. At the October 6, 2017 school board meeting, the superintendent spoke about the request for information about the formula, and he said he sent the information to all 3 towns and all the board members were included. The MSAD chair, 60 chair, asked if any towns had responded, and the superintendent said there had been no correspondence. Both North Berwick and Lebanon should have known then that we were looking at this formula. Through the fall and into the winter, Berwick continued to ask questions and collect information. It was talked about at several selectmen's meetings, so it has been public information for more than 5 months. In January, the Berwick town manager reached out to the Lebanon selectmen to see if they were interested in discussing the situation. At our January 16th meeting, The town manager said that the Lebanon Selectmen had invited us to their meeting during January 25th, I think it was. There were 4 selectmen at that meeting, 4 borough selectmen at our meeting on the 16th. Selectman Pendergast was not there. None of the selectmen present at that time objected to the meeting. I want to repeat that. None of the selectmen at that time objected to that meeting. It was publicly stated that we were having the meeting and was posted on the Lebanon's agenda. It was not a secret meeting. Things were said during the meeting that should not have been said. After watching the meeting again today, I have to admit I've been watching all the meetings from back in September of the school board and the selectmen. And believe me, I'm tired of watching them. And I couldn't find anything that said that I was underhanded or unethical. The borough town manager said at that meeting, after Selectman Pendergast questioned why we had to talk to Northborough, and the town manager said, because we have to, they're our partner. During the February 6, 2018 Selectmen's meeting, we had the superintendent and the 3 board members from Berwick at our meeting. Superintendent Connolly spoke about the budget, and then board chair Dustin Price spoke. And during his time, he said, and I quote, absolutely, there was no underhandedness. You folks are in a public meeting. He also acknowledged that the school board discussed this last year, and when questions of the funding formula were first brought up. Then it seemed it hit the fan. Since then, there have been many accusations thrown my way of being unethical, underhanded, having no integrity. And those were the nice things said about me. There was a lot written on social media. We had underhanded and unethical behavior from Berwick's leadership. We disguised this meeting as an information sharing and tax savings. If this is how leadership acts in an open session, what goes on behind closed doors? I want to know what meetings we held behind closed doors. Everything we've been discussing has been an open meeting. When I asked to be put on the agenda tonight, I joked about taking a verbal meeting. The chair said I didn't have to worry as you were all very professional. Then I read on social media that inflammatory rhetoric was used to encourage people to come to this meeting and attack me. That doesn't sound professional to me. In the recent Fox article, there was again a charge of a clandestine meeting that was publicly announced. I quote from the article, they were openly conspiring. How do you conspire in the open? Everything we've been doing has been public. As the article said, the January 25th meeting was announced in advance, streamed live, and posted on YouTube. I have to ask, what changed from the February 6th statement that there was no underhandedness to now? As I had said from the beginning, we always intended to have a joint meeting of all the towns. That meeting would be held in March. I think it's the 17th, Charlie, the original one?
19th or 17th?
19th. I'm requesting that be put off to the 27th, was the second date, only because I have a conflict of interest on that day, the first date. I see this as the first of many meetings to be had on this. I would suggest, and I have sent this out to the superintendent and to the selectmen in Lebanon and also to the town manager in North Berwick, that we should have this meeting. Everybody should be there. It's going to be 25 to 30 people, elected officials, appointed officials, town government, to start this discussion. 25 to 30 participants is a little large. So I'm suggesting that we possibly have a subcommittee form of one school board member from each town and one selectman from each town being on that subcommittee. The school administration would have a voice on that subcommittee. Then we could use all the town's resources of all 3 towns to collect information. This would give us time to discuss the formula and how it affects all the towns. Berwick has said publicly many times the 50% population, 50% valuation split is not in question. Our only point has been to know how the money from the state is allocated. The state provides money based on the number of students in each town, and we are only questioning how that money is accounted for. The superintendent used a simple analogy earlier. I'll use another one that I've used before in our meetings. We have 3 towns. Berwick has, these are estimates. Berwick has 100 students, Lebanon has 60 students, North Berwick has 40 students. If the state gives $1 for each town, each student in each town, then we have $200. What happens now, I believe, is that money is put into a pool and divided by 3. The way it looks to me is that the state allots $100 to Berwick's students, but we're only accredited for 66. That's the only question we have been asking about. It's not about the 50-50 split. It's not about destroying the district. There's been much fear-mongering about dividing the district. You haven't heard that from Berwick. Only one town has been talking about that, and it's not Berwick. As I said in the beginning, my family and I have a long history with Noble. With any luck, I will see my youngest grandchild graduate from Noble in 10 years. I'm looking forward to that day. I want to apologize if people have misinterpreted our intentions. As I said before, we've been open and public about this from the beginning. We have not tried to hide anything. There have been no secret meetings. There have been no behind the closed door meetings. This has only been discussed in public. Were things said at the Lebanon meeting that shouldn't have been said? I agree, they were. They weren't said by me. I believe in the Foster's article that was put out this morning, I believe it was, that Mark Pendergast apologized in public for that. I have no doubt that we can continue this discussion. I have no doubt that we can work with this discussion. And I have no doubt that as the 3 towns, we can figure out what exactly is going on. Again, I want to apologize for any misunderstanding. I will be, like I said earlier, I will not be at the Tuesday meeting, unfortunately, Charlie. I'm going to be in Disneyland with my grandchildren and enjoying myself, I think. I'm hoping. But there's been nothing that has been underhanded in any of our discussions. Questions from the board?
Do we have any questions for Mr. Wright? I suppose, to clarify this, and I don't want to get into an argument, is certain things that were said that were definitely unethical, and I think the role of the board chair is to get a handle on if his board is overreaching their bounds. And some other things to quote, and actually to answer the question of why I was civil at the Berwick meeting is I was giving a description of the video. I haven't watched it yet. So I gave you the benefit of the doubt of course, as my elected official, that it shouldn't have been underhanded. A frequent thing that I've heard was that it was on your agenda, so of course it was public, but I'm curious to know how many times you would know what's going on at a North Berwick planning meeting on any given day, because I don't think North Berwick's looking at your agendas on any given day. And then during the meeting, and the quotes are, and to do that without telling North Berwick about it, well, we got to tell North Berwick why. North Berwick's not going to vote for it. Why tip our hand? We're the town our two towns can go together and get this amendment passed through Beth, can't we? Which references a previous one, which goes unethical, is misrepresenting Ms. O'Connor's position on this. But we've sat down and discussed this, and she's very willing to take this to the legislature. We're very confident that we, our group, should be able to do this. And if we give something like this and we show her that we're able to do it, she's going to carry it and talk to the leadership. And then we talk about some things where we have an inn at the State House, and we joke about, well, she's a Republican, so is ours, we won't hold that against her. And then we didn't know the name of the state speaker, who is Sarah Gideon, but on the meeting, which was appalling to me, was she was the good-looking one. And there are certain things there for my representation. And again, at this point, I guess I'm speaking as a private citizen, because this is not the opinion of this board. When I'm looking at my representation with I'm appalled, because I had heard a general description, but it couldn't have been that bad. But it was that bad, and more. It was that bad enough where North Berwick, where you make it seem like they're the villain here, they watched their two partners conspire. Because when we say things like, we can pass this law without them knowing, don't tip our hand, that is conspiratorial to me. And that's what my word's for. I don't mean a personal attack, but the behavior in the video was, to me, unethical and conspiratorial. And I don't blame North Berwick whatsoever for their reaction to it. Because from their end, and some other quotes were, $2 million, why not go for $3 million? I don't mind being a greedy bastard. To a meeting that they weren't invited to, and you're assuming that they are looking at your agenda so they would attend on their own, I do find that underhanded and hiding it. And that is why on social media, and I agree, social media is a horrible place, but I spoke my mind on it. I told what I believe was the truth from the videos. For the closed-door meetings, from what I've heard from several people, is that every Friday there's a meeting between you, Pendergast, and the town manager. It's one short of a quorum. If it's not true, I'm saying it's what I've heard, is that Fridays there's meetings between two people, so it's not a quorum, so it doesn't have to be public. So my thing is, this is what's good. If they're willing to do this in the open, what's being said in behind closed doors? And that's where that comment came from, just to be open with you.
As for behind the closed door meetings on Fridays, is the only Friday meeting I think of with Mr. Pendergast and myself included Beth O'Connor in that meeting. So I don't believe she thought it was an unethical behind the door closed meeting. So
that might have been one. I've heard this is a recurring thing. Do I know it's true? Of course I don't, but I was told, and for me, that gives me pause. Is on a televised video, because they did point out, there's a camera. And I understand that some people are working people. I'm not the most eloquent of men. And I can't no longer say I'm not a politician, because I hold a public office. And when I do, I have to remind myself that I'm not the working guy who works at a sewer district. I'm a representative of everyone in Berwick and their children, and comport myself as well. So when there's someone with that crass language, and other employees using profanity to describe my homeless children, those are unethical situations for me. And I understand that I took a very drastic leap. This is the most drastic civic measure I think someone can take, and I'm not going to mention what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. I took a very drastic civic measure. It's in the Fosters.
yeah, you're trying to recall Mr. Pendergast and myself.
Yep. Now, while I agree, Mr. Pendergast was the main basis for most of the behavior in the videos. As the board chair, I expect you to hold the higher standard and control what's going on with the people that are representing Berwick. So, I respect the work that you do for the town. This particular situation was, all the words I describe, I stand by them. So, those are my questions.
I have one question. Why did you not feel it necessary to invite North Berwick?
We were still gathering information. If you go back to the meetings, we were talking about gathering information.
Folks, please.
Gathering information. It seemed like Lebanon might have been in the same boat we were. We reached out to them. They invited us to their meeting. It wasn't our meeting. As I had said, we have said all along that we would have a meeting with all the towns.
This whole situation would not have happened if you had just asked North Berwick.
This is a major problem, and I'll reserve most of my comment and questions for the session we're going to have on the 19th, but as a North Berwick representative, I was incensed at the fact that the one town official in the 3 towns that has the most history as a town official is the North Berwick town manager. And he really should have been involved in the meeting. He could have clarified all of the issues. I think he would have had an extremely productive discussion, and it would have been a good starting point. The only other thing I'd say is I resent any implication, because there was an implication that this board apparently had some kind of discussion, and we did not want to discuss the matter. There was no discussion with this board, and this whole thing was never introduced to us. Am I missing something?
I believe what we had was an informational session where Steve told us he met with Maureen.
Yeah.
And met with the selectmen, back when that also got heated, because Maureen went over a table against Sue.
Yeah. There was no...
Not that bad, but she was heated. But when the discussion with the board might get into it, it was, I believe one of us asked the question, is this to do with us? And it was like, no, it's a voters issue. The voters are the ones who decide this. And that's where that ended.
But our town manager should have been included in the beginning, and we wouldn't be sitting here tonight dealing with all of this.
And we wouldn't have to be hiring attorneys to just protect ourselves, which is going to cost money for our town.
We're budgeting money we don't have at a time when at least this board, we're under a lot of stress right now, as a matter of fact, because the public needs to be made aware of the fact. This is a good place to do it, for start, that we are down $545,000 right now because of the change in the mill rate, which was extreme, very extreme. We're down an additional amount of money because we're not being subsidized, because we paid up front for 2 programs that are going to Sanford, and the state will not reimburse us what they duly owe us. We're being penalized because we followed state rules and regulations regarding our regionalization plan, when we're already doing everything we can do at SAD 35 and in other areas in terms of purchasing paper and everything else.
Shared administrative positions.
Talk about illogical, and I know our 2 representatives are going to deal with this, but this is incredible that we get penalized, I think, $46 a seat because we
are following
we followed the rules.
The RSC.
And the schools that didn't follow the rules are not being penalized, and we're being assessed. So that's another loss. And I guess we're up to roughly close to $1 million that we're losing from the state right now. And you need to know we're dealing with that.
And as you mentioned, the CTE, the Career and Technical Education, that's $216,000 for 2019, and it's about $86,000 for 2020.
Right.
So back to the topic at hand. Do we have any other?
Anyways, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that was good information for the public to hear. As you came in, you noticed there were department heads at all these tables. This was our initial budget, sort of like a rodeo, where we had an opportunity to bring the budget book to each head and just ask the questions. Why were you cutting a position? Why were you adding a position? And try to find out what is what. But not to keep him at the podium all evening, are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I resent the fact that we also have to come up with money for lawyers that we really don't have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, lawyers have already been consulted.
Can I ask the board a question? What do you think of my idea of a subcommittee to continue this?
I don't think we're...
As a board, we're very familiar with subcommittees.
Yeah.
We are afraid with it. What I do want, though, is that initial meeting to have everyone at the table. And if everyone agrees to subcommittees, then that's fine. I don't want to commit to any plans this evening on it, but I think once we do get all of the officials together and we have that first discussion, if we're comfortable enough with selecting someone from each one, and this is a group decision, absolutely. Not speaking for the whole board, but that's how I feel.
I would also say that, we're heading into a very busy season with budget, with a lot to discuss that's not enjoyable stuff to discuss, and that at least from my standpoint, is our priority right now, is to, deal with the budget that we have in front of us and figuring that out. So that from a time standpoint, and I'm not on one of the committees that other people are, that takes even more time. So, in my opinion, those meetings all need to come first.
Well, as I said, this is something that can go on. I'm not looking for an immediate solution to this. I'm just looking to get more information and have an open discussion between all the boards.
I definitely agree that the end goal is probably a ways away, but I think it is imperative that as soon as possible, we get all the towns together to put out this fire, this coal before it becomes a fire. Because, I'm not the only angry person on Facebook. There's a room full here of people for a reason. And it'll only grow bigger if we don't nip it in the bud. And I've heard from North Berwick, they seem very willing. I got your letter today, North Berwick's letter, thank you. And if we have to postpone it to the 2nd, because they proposed 2 dates, I don't remember the backup date.
The 27th and the 19th. I haven't commented on the 19th.
But either way,
I had written to Dwayne and Steve saying that earlier that I had that conflict and hoping to put it off.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, North Berwick has their town meeting, April 7th, is it? So, I understand they want to get this done before their meeting, so.
Absolutely, it's important, I think, not just for us as a group too, but for all the folks in the room and out in our towns that are looking to regain their trust in the process that we have, and see that their officials can sit around a table and discuss a contentious, might not even be contentious, but discuss an issue the way things are meant to be discussed, and that is as a whole. Because while there are borders between all of our towns, when it comes to Noble, and it's right there on that sign when you walk in, what those letters stand for is North Berwick, Berwick, and Lebanon. We are a bargaining unit, we are a family of one when it comes to the school. And I would hope in the future, all other discussions regarding school involved all 3 towns. So sounds like 27th is going to be the date.
Steve, Mr. Connolly, you're going to hold this here in the school. I'd suggest not this room, is you have another venue that we can use.
You and I can talk, because I want to hear about what it was about the particular, but we don't need to take up
the reason I ask is because we want BCTV there to film it. And with 25 or 30 people, a lot of logistics that need to be taken care of ahead of time.
We can chat.
Okay.
We got the technology, we can rebuild it. Travis reminds me that we shouldn't commit to a date though, because there are plenty of people here on the board too that might have some issues, so apologize for that.
Or in any of the 3 towns right now, we don't know.
The letter sounded like if we all, and this is to anybody on any of the boards, submit your availability to Mr. Moore. He'll, I think, is going to schedule it to whichever one has the most availability.
Most people available, okay.
And that's how I would take it and how I think it should be done.
That's probably the most literate man at this board. You're a minutes man, thank you very much.
I have one more question.
Comment from the board, absolutely.
There was a question earlier, maybe, I think it was her, but I also had the same question about there's some mixed understanding about submitting the legislation that you have drafted. So if Ms. O'Connor is not putting it in, but then we've heard that it is moving forward, are you submitting that, the legislation?
No, Beth and I, we've talked about this we had talked earlier, particularly about this session being the emergency session, getting things through legislative council, which is nearly impossible. So we realized...
So no, it has not been submitted and it's not going to be?
No, we knew it wasn't going to have a chance to do anything. And really, that legislation that was drawn up was more for an informative piece to let us know how things were to proceed. Most people don't realize what goes on in the legislature, so we had that drawn up.
By your attorneys?
By your attorney.
And that was before the January 25th meeting?
Yeah.
That was before the fact finding?
Right. No, the fact finding has been going on.
No, but it was before the January 25th meeting.
But the fact finding has been going on since last September. So we've been in contact with the Department of Education last September. We're in contact with our lawyer. Has been back in contact with the Department of Education in December, I think it was. So we've been gathering information all along.
But do you see the problem, any problem in drawing up a piece of legislation, having an attorney do that in the absence of one of the three towns?
I didn't ask for the legislation to be drawn up. As we discussed it, as I believe our town manager talked to our attorney, and he had questions, and she sent that down. So,
Stan, could you repeat your question, though? Because I didn't think they answered it.
What?
What was your question?
Well, my question, do you see any problem with legislation actually being drawn up by a lawyer at maybe the district's expense in the absence of the North Berwick town manager?
No, yeah, he's talking about the legislative process, that once we get into the statute 1302, it shifts over.
Is this what was handed to you?
In the absence of the North Berwick town manager. At one point, your town manager actually hung up on our town manager in the conversation we had. Galena was trying to explain, our position in this whole issue. I apologize, because I said a few minutes ago I'll reserve comment and questions for the meeting we have on the 19th. But as a representative of North Berwick, and having been involved all winter with the budget process on the subcommittee and so forth, and the other problems that we face right now, I'm incensed that we have to take this kind of time to deal with something like this. It would not have happened if everybody had been involved at the table right in the beginning.
Amen.
anything further, Dustin?
There was a comment from Ms. O'Connor was raising her hand. Or did you want to step up? Any other questions from the board?
No, I don't know. I can say it right here.
Well, actually, we're going to need you. Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you.
So I've given Mrs. Austin a copy of the piece of legislation. That piece of legislation was given to me about 8 days before the January 25th meeting, when I told Mr. Eldridge that there was no way I could submit that. That was 8 days before the Lebanon Selectmen meeting. In addition, and I folded it up in my pocket, and it was so horrible that I threw my coat into the back of the car and lost a piece of legislation. I couldn't find it. It was on the floor of my car when I got in my car. But that being said, the meeting that Mr. Wright is referring to, that I was there, when I walked into, I had seen the video, I was so incensed after seeing the video that I went in to see Mr. Eldridge to chastise him for using my name in the manner that it was used and making it appear that, and when I went in, Mrs. Wright was there. She was doing an awesome thing for the Comcast TV, and which was great to hear, so I had to wait patiently. And then it just happened to be, so I chewed out Mr. Eldridge, and then I went downstairs, and Mr. Wright and Mr. Pendergast were meeting with Mr. Eldridge. I didn't know any of that. I just happened in there because I was still fuming. And so I went in, and I think I gave you guys a few choice words as well. And I was pretty upset about it, and I just wanted us all to get together. So I just wanted to make it clear. And then the following week, on Friday, Mr. Eldridge sent me an email, which you can FOIA me, and asked me if I could meet with Mr. Wright and him, which I did, and I gave them how the amounts are broken down, which I gave a copy of that to Mrs. Austin, and how they're broken down, in showing them that there's two sides to every story. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. It showed the funding formula as North Berwick paying $8,040-something per student, Berwick paying somewhere between $55,200 and $5,300, and Lebanon paying about $5,500 per student. So I went down to show them that information and to ask them to please all get together. That was the impetus for the second meeting. The first one was happenstance. I just went down to the town hall because I was infuriated. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so I had a question from Steve Connolly. If the board would like to entertain another session of public input at the end of regular business, or?
Continue and then let people have their...
Is there any interest in more public input? And it appears that there is. If the board is interested in it, we need a motion to add some more public input.
I'll make the motion for more public input.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Are we doing that
Do we have an
now?
end,
doing
or
it
is
at the end?
unlimited?
Right now. What's that? I saw 3 hands. We're willing to get done.
There's a few more. so.
I think,
I don't know, this is important enough to me where I'm willing to be here all night,
but I think it's important that things aren't repeated.
Absolutely. That's something we talked about at the beginning. If a point has been made, and it's already been made, please don't repeat the same point over and over. Standard. Yep, standard. So with that caveat, do we have a vote, motion to do this? All in favor?
So we have Becky and Stan and then...
Yep.
5 or for it, anyone on that side? 3, all those against? All abstaining?
So 8...
I was going to vote for, but I was
So 8-0...
trying to answer.
Thank you. First public input, sir, please step up.
My name is Jonathan Hall, and I'm a teacher in the district. I'm also the chairman of the North Berwick Board of Selectmen this year. And I had a question for Steve after hearing Mr. Wright's comments. As I understand it, and I'd like some clarification from you, he wants to change the state funding formula. We don't have any ability to change that. Is that not correct? The state decides what they're going to give our district.
So if I would reflect back on what I believe Mr. Wright was talking about, is that he's not talking about the 55-45, he's talking about that when you get the reports, called the ED 279, on the bottom of it, 84-85% of the districts follow MRSA 20-A, and so it shows on that, in the essential programs and services, this is what each community should get, and he's talking about how that is divided up. Am I correct? So, yeah.
So my question again is, does the school board or any of the select boards of the towns have any authority over that?
I would say yes, because his actual question is about I think if I look further into that question, my take on it is should the district move from the P&S Law 67 to the MRSA 20-A? Is that accurate?
In English?
So in 1967, there was a law that said, private and special law that said, this district will follow that 50-50 that I've already talked about. And so instead of doing that, follow the breakout that the majority of districts or municipalities in the state follow, which has a different, use that funding formula versus the one that we currently use.
And I think an important part of that I learned at, I believe Dwayne Moore had spoke about it, was that the reason for the special law was mostly when people combine, a lot of the towns are very similar.
Yeah.
And that when you're trying to have a dissimilar association, there's an opportunity to negotiate to try to make it so one town's not paying exorbitantly more than the other. So in 67, when we were formed, there was a negotiation process, and it worked in, I believe there was a time when it was like 70-30 was where it went, and they kind of worked their way down to 50-50 negotiation to work out what everyone was paying in, and that's what is now in law. Which is why, when we're talking about the legislation that was read, do you want to change a special law to what I think it says the majority of the state does?
Yep.
So, I mean, it reads very well. If you read this law, I don't think any sane person wouldn't, oh, that sounds good to me. Shall the method of sharing costs among the member municipalities in SED 60, as enacted by the legislature in private and special law, so what we're talking about, the P&S law, be approved to change the calculation of member municipal assessments to match the state law cost sharing provisions instead of the district's existing private and special law. So it sounds like we have some private and special, we should go along with the rest of the state. So it's a very vague legislation, which is why I believe it got lost in somebody's car. But to that, yeah, the EPS is a law at the moment. It's not anything soft, so that would involve legislation process or renegotiation, if I recall, with 3 members of each community?
Yeah, so I still think he's referring to a different step before that.
Okay. Enlighten.
So if we're currently following that PNS 67.
Yeah.
I think what they're saying is, instead of following that, have legislative act that allows the district to, legislation has to rule first, but to change to the 20-A. And so if you change the funding formula, there are a couple of different steps in there. There's legislative or purview, and then after that, there's committee work that involves representatives, similar to what he's talking about with the breakout group, that would be a legal requirement at some point. And then there's referenda that happens in the communities.
Okay.
All right, so that 1967 law, I know that impacts what goes above and beyond what the state says we're going to have, but that also impacts how the state decides that they're going to give us that chunk of money to the district.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got a gentleman, I guess, in line. I'll let you step up, then I'll get to you, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I said earlier that we should be open for discussion about it. I think the caveat on that is the fact that I think the reason that a lot of us don't show up here is that we trust the people who are put into these positions and volunteer to take their time and their energy to do what we're not putting our time and energy for. I'm glad that everybody showed up when there's sand in the oatmeal or something like that. But I want to go home. I want to be able to trust the people that are in place to actually work with ethics and integrity. And I do trust this board. I think that the discussion should be had, but I don't think that you, sir, should be at that table. Because I think what we've learned from this is that we want people that we don't have to muster up the people and put their butts in chairs, like my wife said, to show that we're here to support the people who are going to work together, who aren't going to not tip their hand and try to sneak through legislation and put it in a referendum. We want people on this board and representing in our town, people who are going to work ethically with other people. I got to that quote that he said about the fact of not tipping your hand. It was said by the same guy that 2 sentences before said, we're just a town that likes to work with other towns. And then 2 sentences later says, why do we have to tip our hand? Because it wasn't an exploratory meeting. It was we can push this through legislation and get it into referendum before they even know about it. And that type of ethics and that type of methodology, I'm very glad that you have done the recall, and I support that because I want this to be a discussion. Maybe there is more that we can do as a town in North Berwick to make it a little bit more equitable for everybody involved. But I think that we know who we want discussing that, and I don't think we want you, sir, at that table. That's the point. At least that's how I feel. And I support your effort to recall, and I don't mean to talk ill of it. I know that you're looking for your own benefit for your own town, but it's put our kids at risk. And that's the bottom line. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, sir.
I want you to have this discussion. I want you to make sure that the people who are sitting at that table for discussion are the ones that we don't have to show up. I'm sorry, we should show up to all these meetings, but we don't have to because we trust you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you still Pamela? You are. Okay.
I just, Mr. Wright, in your comments and what you said here tonight, I don't think you understand how it came off to residents, that meeting, especially the comments at the end of that meeting. Not everybody watches these things. By your own admission, they're boring. And kind of what that gentleman just said, we trust you guys to go into these meetings to talk on the residents' behalf for us, we're doing that for the town. No, it wasn't a secret meeting, but it was certainly on the down low. It's certainly, you're covering it with an informative meeting, but I didn't hear any questions. You already had a plan, and it sounded like you were trying to get Lebanon as an ally against Northborough. So I didn't hear any questions, I didn't hear any fact-finding. I think you guys presented it to Lebanon. Come with us, vote with us, it'll be 2 against 1. We use this lawyer. Oh, well, I don't mind looking like a greedy bastard. We use the same lawyer. Like, it was just, I don't think you understand how it came off to everybody else. It looked like you just wanted them to have the 2-to-1 vote. And about not showing your hand. There were 7 or 8 people in that meeting. Not one person said, guys, this is unethical. We shouldn't be talking like this. North Berwick isn't here. This is a little more than fact-finding. You know, you're talking about lawyers, come with us. Like, it was more like looking for an ally. And I watched a couple of your meetings, and you didn't disrespect one of your fellow selectmen, which is very off-putting for the public to come and ask questions, because I don't want to get attacked that way. So it's just, the whole picture, when we trust you guys to have these meetings as residents, it was just shocking to see and hear what you said. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have any other further comment with something new to say? In the back, thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Eric Heitman, resident of Northborough, Maine. Keep this simple. I think that if you were involved in this crony capitalism that occurred, I don't really appreciate that. Your smirk that you just gave me, sir, I think you and all your cronies need to resign. You want to nip this in the bud right now?
Sir, I'm going to interrupt you just for a quick second, though. If we can just, we're presenting public input to the board. Right. If we could try to not direct any sort of, any personal attacks, I guess what we're asking.
Way that's impeding on the future of my children, you need to resign, and this all gets resolved immediately. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Up front? Did you get his last name? Heitman.
Yeah, Charles Lomo again, North Berwick Board of Selectmen. And I just want to emphasize that, I mean, yes, we did have discussions to find out if worst case scenario, what would it mean for us to leave the district, but we don't want to leave the district. And we think it's even having to come to that juncture is very far off. So, you know, I kind of want to not have people walk away nervous and uncertain, because we're doing everything we can to keep the funding formula fair and equitable, and we're willing to talk about it. You know, I mean, personally, I think, you know, I'll say personally, I think it's good the way it is right now, because North Berwick has the largest valuation of any town, because we're lucky enough to have Pratt in the town, you know, and that helps us out. But we also only have 22% of the students in the district. And once you break it down, yeah, we're paying, the average cost per student is $6,180, you know, if you take it and divide it up. And we're paying over $8,000 a student, and all the other towns are paying well below the $61.80. But North Berwick is fine with that. We've always supported, our voters have always passed the school budget, in my memory. We've always supported this school. We know there's, you know, we're well aware there's serious budget issues coming up. You know, Lebanon needs another school. your elementary school. I was, actually, when Representative Garish described it, I was kind of shocked. You know, and North Berwick is committed to working with everyone and seeing that all the children in this district get the best education they can, because they're the future of our community. So, you know, we want to work through this. We don't want things to go bad. We want to rebuild trust. You know, I posted on social media thanking the Lebanon chairman for his apology, and they're coming to our meeting on Tuesday, and I hope thank him personally. So, you know, I don't want people to walk away kind of nervous, oh, what's going to happen? We're really, you know, and I'm sure, John, you agree, we've talked about it, we're really committed to making this whole thing work out to everybody's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith?
Kelly Smith, Berwick. I just wanted to take an opportunity real quick for just a quick public input of, I appreciate that Lebanon has apologized to North Berwick. I know that Berwick has not necessarily apologized to North Berwick. But talking to many people within the community, I'm pretty involved in the community, we love the town of North Berwick. We love Milton. And I would like to apologize on behalf of Berwick, even if our representatives won't. So we are willing to work with people. We love this community. We want to see it work. And we want, I personally want to see Noble work. I'm very invested in this school. I'm very invested in the people here. I'm very invested in the children. And so I'm excited to see the board. I'm excited to see the selectmen come together. I'm excited to see us talk. Because when we talk, we can work on anything. We can always make it work. So I want to thank you guys for being so gracious through this process, for being the butt end of everything, but taking it so well. Thank you very much, and we appreciate it.
Charles, just clarification for me. Does your meeting start at 6:30 on Tuesday night? Okay, great, thanks.
Any further public input? I see a hand. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be brief because we're all tired. And thank you, board, for being here always, but I look out at everybody here that I've worked with on subcommittees, coaches, volunteers, and we all contribute to the community, even if we're not serving in this capacity. So thank you for your time, but thank you all for the time you put into the communities too. And I think you'd be a great role model for our kids. So I had a big statement. I'm having a hard time putting together what I'm hearing all night when I hear it's posted public knowledge that these meetings were taking place, and yet at that meeting, I hear a statement, don't tip your hand, they'll never know. Those two statements cannot exist in the same paragraph or in the same conversation, because one of them is not even close to the middle of the two. You say don't be nervous, and I want to not be nervous. I see a lot of healing and reaching out. And not to be contrary, but I'm very nervous. And we're at the end of our child's time here, but we're taxpayers. And I'm not sure if our $8,200 a student, is that 67%? Or does that get into a shared pool and benefit the Berwick and Lebanon kids? Which I hope it does, because it is one community, one noble student, no matter where they reside. So I think those are things we have to keep in our mind as we go forward. My biggest fear is Lebanon. I have no ties, no family, don't know a lot of teachers from there, but I've seen the shape of the schools. I've worked in different committees without. I've seen the commitment from those teachers and what they've worked with. And North Berwick had trailers out behind our school for many years, and we're an invested community. But you know, the elderly in our towns are paying a higher tax rate, if it's just about the taxes, for every district child. And the last point I want to make is, I'm a little confused, and I'm going to ask this as my question for clarification. North Berwick puts out an annual town report. I don't know if I'm the only one who reads it. But these are all public figures and things that we can find if we're invested in our communities. I don't come to these meetings, but I read minutes, I read the reports. This is not a secret about the per capita child from your tax base in your town. open the report, go to the website, all one-year selectmen. Any one of us can get this information. The state funding's a little harder to read through all those 20A, but they are there. It's public knowledge. You don't even need to file a form to make it public knowledge. It's there. So that's how we can get involved. But I would ask you, or ask for clarification on that point. Maybe it's something that when you're doing these meetings, so dry, you could possibly put that on the school board page, just a brief for people who want to go to one spot to find out what is happening with that, because it sounds like the gentleman from North Berwick, and there are a lot of new people in town that maybe don't know where to access these. And this is a time-based issue. I think you have a lot of people who want to get educated and get educated quick. But thank you. Thank you.
Well, to that, if anyone wants to know what's going on with board business, and we do our best to have as detailed minutes as possible, we have Sue Austin typing right away. They're always posted on the MSAD 60 website under Board and Budget, I believe is the tab, or it might just be Board Business. You click, a drop-down menu comes in, you can see the upcoming agenda, you can see the minutes. Also, we've partnered this year with Berwick Community Television, and that's getting not only televised, but for the folks in Lebanon, North Berwick who don't get BCTV, they stream it on their website. So everything we speak about here, we're trying our best to make this a more public affair. Like I said, it's great to see everybody here. It's why we added more public input and trying to be as open as possible. Any specific questions for budget, because the budget's a complicated issue, and it's an ongoing changing issue. So the budget book that we have here will be a different book in 2 weeks because things are going to move around. So we do our best to put that out, but we put a budget book out to everybody. We do hold the public hearing, the annual report. So we do our best to be transparent, but if at any time, any of you have a question regarding anything about Noble, and I'm sure you guys might not know who represents who, because I'm very proud of our board where we represent the entire town. I'm not sure, you couldn't look at this board and know who's representing North Berwick tonight, because we represent Noble. So for those of you in North Berwick, if you have questions at any time, if the North Berwick representatives could raise their hand, you have Stan, we have Lynn, and we have Rebecca. Their emails are on the website. They will assist you anytime you need. For Berwick, we have me, Travis, and Denise. Ari, again, emails are on the website and respond right away. And then for Lebanon, we have Joanne, we have Nancy, and we have Becky. And at any time, we're at your service. So if questions, don't ever think you have to wait to find something out. Send a question, we'd love to hear from you. Final call for public input. Yes, ma'am.
And I was not at the meeting that took place. I'm embarrassed. And my reaction after reviewing all the meeting minutes was to reach out to Dustin, to Superintendent Connolly, as well as I spoke with Wayne. And I issued an apology on behalf of Berwick. So I want the residents to know that. What's more concerning for me is sitting here tonight, not only being embarrassed of what took place, but the aftermath and the ownership, and saying, we made a mistake, but we need to move forward. So I can assure you, it's not what I represent. As your town selectman, it's not behavior that I will condone or accept, but I do want you to know that somebody did reach out, so.
Thank you. Absolutely, sir.
Quick to change subjects. It's something that the superintendent mentioned earlier about all the things that go on nationally with the schools and things. What's the administration's position if there is a student activity, a rally or anything? So we hear some school districts suspending students, some people, put them in detention if they attend rallies or something during the school district. I don't know if there is anything going on in the school district because of this.
We're in public input.
I'm just wondering, what's your...
Yep, can I give just a quick...
Yeah, real quick, because we got business to do.
Okay. So Sue's brother has offered to give them all Shanes of Maine ice cream, but, no, maybe not.
Sorry, Joe.
Maybe not. We're not into the punishment business. Our stance on it is that this is an opportunity, a tragic opportunity for students to be able to employ the democratic process in protective ways for their age. And so I'm very interested in providing the opportunity to do that. We're taking a neutral stance. We're not punishing students for participating in it in reasonable demonstration. We're promoting the safest possible way to do it. I will tell people, the public, that I'm concerned that a national organization is saying, we're talking gun violence, we're talking school shootings, and so the answer to that is to say, on March 14th, everybody step outside their schools at 10 a.m. to 10:17 a.m. That, to me, is just like, I'm sorry to say, that's like inviting my own personal view or protective view of our students, like inviting another tragedy to happen. I just can't. So I'm promoting with students this is a safe envelope. It's a much safer envelope than an outside like the school grounds. So I'm promoting sit-in, a walk-in, a walk indoors, whatever, opportunities for students to speak. And so I think there's a good, it's tragedy and there's opportunity in it, and we want to take advantage of that. We've already discussed with staffs, put out communications with staff about what their role is. This it's not a public platform for parents, it's not a public platform for employees. There's plenty of opportunity outside of the school setting for people to do that. So we're trying to figure out how do we provide opportunity for students to be part of the democratic process.
I'm glad to hear that you're not into the punishment aspect of it. I agree with you that, something organized and being outside may invite trouble. There's something that, Terry and I have talked about recently with BCTV, and I know that she would like to reach out to the students if they would like to do something with a video or anything that we could put up on air. So that's something that we could possibly do and, encourage that. So I thank you for your...
Yeah, I was just looking to see if I saw Mr. Finley here earlier. If he's smart, he said he's going to bed. I don't know. It's 9:45. But, yeah.
All right, thank you. Representative O'Connor, and that will be the final public input of the evening.
I want to end this on a really positive note. I'm really excited about this. I just want to let you all know I've never voted for a bond in my life. However, there is a very good bonding package that's coming forward. It was put forward by Representative Patrick Corey, and what it does, and I hope you can all see to vote for it, it's a $20 million bond, and it will go directly to our school districts to help with all safety enhancements and training methods for our schools. And I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping that we will get a really good vote out of that. It'll go out to the voters so that you'll have to be able to have a say in that. And it'll help our children feel safer. It'll make these schools safer. And each and every school will have the access to this bond money.
So it's non-competitive?
It's non-competitive,
okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
that's a good positive.
And just a quick follow-up on that, Beth. I'm working with Art Cleaves, who is the York County Emergency Management Director, to see if I can put together a presentation from whether it's fire, police, the emergency management systems, to do updating with York County superintendents, York County administrators. So we'll see if we can get some more training involved for people.
Wonderful. We actually, I worked with him with energy utility technology on the storm outages that we had, and he's wonderful, so I'm sure that'll be great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Thank you all for such civic and well-spoken public input. We appreciated everybody's opinion.
Take like a
as a board. We have been here for a while, but we have quite a bit of work to do. The superintendent's wondering if we would be interested in a short 10-minute recess?
Even a 5-minute.
Or 5 minutes to stretch legs?
I need a water, so.
A water's fine?
Yeah, it's dry.
So we're going to have a 5-minute recess and come back to public session in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Might have one in there.